Restart it.
You could just keep going.
Well, no, I'm off rhythm now. I need a second. Lads, welcome back to Fusion YGO, and today we're doing something different. We're gonna have a discussion. All right, so today we're gonna be talking about how powerful or how not powerful an individual card is. We're gonna have an entire video talking about one card, and that's Crossout Designator. I feel like I'm on Wheel of Fortune. Okay, so Crossout Designator is a really interesting card to talk about. The decks that it's best in are decks that are not very good against hand traps. Or, as some players would say, like me, it's just not a very good strategy. Decks that really benefit from it would be decks like Live Twin and Heroes and B-Troopers. And decks like that really are boosted by the ability to deal with hand traps like that in a very quick and off-the-cusp fashion. It would be better if things like Called by the Grave were back at 3 because these kinds of decks would benefit, but Called by the Grave is more versatile. So we're going to talk about why this card is good in certain decks and why it's less useful and less used in other meta competitive decks. So we'll start with why is it not used in a lot of meta decks? For the most part, most meta decks, they don't lose to an individual hand trap. It takes 2 or 3, and Crossout Designator only deals with 1. So with that ability to one hand trap isn't enough to stop me, you have to dedicate more of your deck space to it. Crossout Designator loses a lot of its value in decks like Tenyi Sword Soul, Tri-Brigade, and those types of decks, even Drytron. The only hand trap Drytron loses to is Droll and Lockbird, and so you could make the argument, but they have things that can stop Droll and Lockbird in the main deck already equipped with Herald of the Orange Light, so what's the benefit? So let's talk about now the decks that benefit greatly from something like Crossout Designator. Well, the first one I brought up, I believe, was Live Twins. Live Twin is a very small engine deck. It's about 15 cards in your main deck, typically for a Live Twin deck. And then you're able to play a lot of the best hand traps of the format, as well as some powerful trap cards. So Crossout Designator naturally will fit right into your strategy as a card that just lets you deal with hand traps. It's very efficient. It's very, it's a negligible loss. You don't really lose. There's no loss on investment. It just fits right in. It's 15 cards in the main deck, so you've got 25 cards to play with. It's like GOAT format all over again. But that's one example. And the other reason that Crossout Designator is so good in something like Live Twin is its consistency is right here. It's 1-card combos. So it's got a very high consistency. It just has, it's choked out really easily. So something like Crossout Designator will solve that issue. Cards like Nibiru, Effect Veiler, Ash Blossom, and Joyous Spring can all turn off Live Twins if they have no extensions. And because of the limited number of extensions within Live Twins, it is naturally countered by a lot of hand traps. So, Called by the Grave and Crossout Designator are just thrown in because most of the hand traps they lose to are really good against the rest of the format, so they run them anyway. Moving on to something that's a little bit different. A deck like Adignisters actually benefits greatly from Crossout Designator. The reason being is that they lose to a Droll and Lockbird or a Nibiru very easily. And being able to squeeze in maybe 2 copies of each plus 3 copies of Designator is relatively simple since the entire deck can go off of 1 card. It's a very efficient strategy. So just like Live Twins, because of its high consistency, but big weakness also to hand traps, Crossout Designator will naturally fit in for 7 to 10 cards of your main deck, where the rest of the deck can just be gasoline for the fire. Another strategy that benefits greatly from a card like Crossout Designator would be Heroes. Heroes loses to any hand trap, all hand traps. If it's a hand trap, Heroes vomits and like pisses its pants. But with the inclusion of a card like Crossout Designator, Heroes are able to play, instead of 3 copies of hand traps, they limit themselves to 1 copy of each, plus 3 copies of Crossout Designator, and they're able to play through hand traps now. Because most decks don't have, most competitive decks only run 6 to 10, and it's only weird niche decks that run more. For example, Eldritch can run a bunch of hand traps because the engine's very small. Live Twins can run a bunch of hand traps because the engine's very small. But if the engine is relatively large, like Adignisters, they have to limit themselves and play it smart when it comes to deck building and card choice. So Heroes gets the benefit of the majority of decks are playing a small number of hand traps within their engine. So they're able to pick and choose the most popular ones of the format. In this case, it would be Infinite Impermanence, Effect Veiler, and Nibiru. Would be the 3 big ones that would terrify them.
He's just standing there, menacingly. Get out of there, SpongeBob!
And obviously Ash Blossom. So you've got 4 hand traps, 3 Crossout Designators, 7 cards in your main deck, for 33 other cards that just say put big hero body on board. There are a bunch of other strategies that can benefit from this. But what you need to look at when you're doing it is 1, do you have enough space to put the hand traps in that your deck inherently loses to? 2, can you survive a turn or build a board through at least 1 interruption so you can maximize the value of your Crossout Designator? And is your deck actually competitively viable? Another deck that could make the argument to be on this list, while it doesn't have the tops recently to really warrant it being here, would be something like Bee Troopers. Bee Troopers are actually a really cool strategy. They mix in the Battle Wasps, which is a strategy that nobody thought was going to be good, including Battle Wasp players. And Bee Troopers have found a way to bring them into the meta limelight as a very good, decent rogue deck with big bodies, big bugs, and a big stink bug to really just ruin your opponent's day. But because they lose to things like Nibiru and Droll and Effect Veiler and all these things that every other deck is playing, Crossout Designator can fit. Unfortunately, the deck space is limited because of how big your engines need to be, because you're playing Battle Wasps and Bee Troopers. So since you have those 2 big engines in there, you only really realistically have 7 to 10 spots to work with anyway. So while it, yes, fits, you may have to exclude other cards from your strategy or hurt your math and your numbers by increasing your deck count to above 43. That's going to do it for today's card talk. I think Crossout Designator is an okay card, and it benefits greatly dependent on format. If we go to a format that's more control heavy and where everybody is playing one of 3 strategies, the card's incredible. In a mirror match, the card is incredible. Being able to banish something and telling your opponent, no, you don't get to use this card this turn, I can use it on mine, is really rude and really powerful. So it can steal games if you're in a simplified game format like the Eternal format where it's one of 4 decks. Crossout Designator is a crazy card in that kind of a format because in a mirror match it cripples everything, and the hand traps are pretty much the hand traps, so you're able to just play through it and deal with it. These are just my thoughts on why Crossout Designator is currently only like a $35 card. This card is really, really good, but it's meta reliant and it is very dictated by the meta. Now is the best time to get your copies. This is about the price range I expected it to be at. It's actually a little lower than I expected it to be at now that I'm thinking about it. But now is a great time to pick it up. It's a really good card. It just needs the meta to be more defined. And with how the past 2 years have gone, a year and a half have gone, it's been a very wide open format with a lot of different strategies. So something like Crossout Designator struggles and is one of the really powerful cards that is just kind of not as powerful because of diversity. Diversity weakens this card, but when it's simplified or it's set where you know what the top couple of decks are, that card goes from being okay, it's just a hand trap stopper, to really, really powerful. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, Smash that subscribe button. Leave a like if you thought it was a good conversation. We're gonna do more of these. Leave your suggestions in the comment section down below. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. And until next time, lads, good fun. Have luck.